On most days, Emma thought of herself as painfully average job. Average apartment, average coffee that was always a little too bitter but on that particular Thursday. In a city where nobody had time to look up from their screens, she was about to make a decision that would quietly change someone's life. It was 7:42 a.m. in downtown Chicago, the kind of cold morning where the wind felt personal like it had a grudge. And Emma was speed-walking from the subway to her office, gripping a to-go cup and mentally rehearsing the excuses she'd use if she was late again. Her boss, Mr. Randall, was the kind of man who measured human worth in punctuality and productivity charts, and Emma was already on thin ice after 3 friendly reminders about being on time. As she hurried past the usual blur of commuters honking cars and food trucks setting up for the day, her eyes briefly flicked to the corner near the intersection by 8th and Madison, a spot she'd learned to not really see anymore, but today something made her stop. They're sitting on an overturned milk crate, bundled in a too-thin jacket with an oversized beanie pulled. Low over his brow was a man holding a cardboard sign that looked like it had been erased and rewritten too many times. The black marker letters weren't neat or artistic, just raw and desperate. Father, laid off, daughter in hospital. Anything helps. His hands were shaking, whether from the cold or something else. Emma couldn't tell. People streamed past him like water around a rock. Some glanced at him and quickly looked away. Some didn't notice him at all, their ears plugged with earbuds, fingers dancing on screens, minds 1,000 miles away. Emma felt that familiar internal tug-of-war start in her chest. One voice said, "Come on, you've seen signs like that 100 times. It could be fake. You can't save everyone. You're going to be late, again." The other voice, smaller but stubborn, whispered, "What if it isn't fake? What if this is real and you're just another person pretending not to see it?" The crosswalk signal flicked to walk. The crowd surged forward and Emma's feet moved with them for a few steps, before she stopped right in the middle of the sidewalk, letting people brush past her with annoyed sighs and muttered, "Excuse me, S." She looked back at the man on the crate. Something about him, a slumped weariness, a kind of tired dignity, made it impossible for her to walk away. With a quiet curse under her breath about her job and her timing and her stupid, endlessly soft heart, she turned around and walked back. Up close, he looked even more exhausted. His beard was patchy, his eyes bloodshot, and he held his sign with the kind of fragile hope that looked like it had been broken and taped back together a few times. Emma stood in front of him, suddenly unsure what to say. "Hey," she began awkwardly, her breath joining the white steam of the morning air. Is your daughter really in the hospital?" The question sounded harsher out loud than it had in her head, and she winced, immediately regretting her wording. But the man didn't flinch. He just looked up at her, and for the first time she saw his eyes clearly tired. "Yes, but not empty." He nodded. "Yeah," he said quietly, voice rough. "Her name's Lily. She's 6, got pneumonia. Real bad. Doctor says she needs meds we can't afford. Insurance lapsed when I got laid off." Emma swallowed. This wasn't the vague, impersonal story she'd half expected. This was specific, real, messy in the way real life always was. "I'm sorry," she said, and for once she meant it in a way that went deeper than politeness. "Which hospital?" He told her St. Mary's, across town. She knew it. She'd passed it before on the bus. The big brick building with the children's wing and the colorful murals that tried to make something terrifying feel less like it. "Do you have something from the hospital?" she asked gently. "A bill, a prescription, anything?" If she was going to help, she needed to know this wasn't just another scam, the type her coworkers liked to rant about over lunch as proof the world was going to hell. The man reached into his worn backpack and pulled out a crumpled envelope, careful not to tear it more. Inside was a printed hospital document with his name, Daniel Ross, and a prescription list for medications Emma couldn't pronounce and definitely couldn't afford in full. The total at the bottom made her stomach drop. It wasn't movie money dramatic, not tens of thousands, but it was still the kind of number that would crush someone already behind on rent. "I'm not asking one person to cover it," Daniel said quickly, misreading the look on her face. "I know people got their own problems. I'm just hoping, I guess, a little here, a little there. Maybe it adds up." His hands tightened on the paper. "I just can't not try." She's my kid. Emma felt the familiar spreadsheet of her life flick through her head. Her checking account balance, her credit card bill, her student loans, her rent due in a week. She wasn't rich, not by a long shot. She was barely stable. But there in the middle of that cold sidewalk, staring at a father trying not to fall apart, the math started to matter less than something else, an uncomfortable but clear realization that if she walked away now, she'd think about him all day, probably all week, maybe longer. There are moments in your life when you feel a line being drawn not on paper, but somewhere just behind your ribs, and you know that whichever side you step onto is going to change who you are a tiny bit. Emma took a breath and stepped toward the side she hoped she'd be proud of later. "Okay," she said, more to herself than to him. "Here's what we're going to do." Daniel blinked, surprised. "We?" Emma nodded. From her bag, she pulled out her phone and her wallet. She opened her banking app with fingers that kind of wanted to tremble but didn't. Her account wasn't great, but it wasn't empty either. It meant saying no to takeout and maybe cutting back on going out with friends for a while. It meant being uncomfortable, but not unsafe. She typed in an amount she knew she would feel and hit send. "Give me your Cash App or something," she said. He fumbled out a phone. The screen cracked but still working, and she scanned the code, making the transfer right there in front of him. The notification pinged on his phone. He stared at the screen like it was in another language. You just sent... Are you sure?" he stammered. That's a lot." "It's not enough, I know," Emma said, suddenly embarrassed, like her help was too small in the face of something this big. "But I'm not done." She stepped back and turned toward the flow of people, took a breath, and did something she never imagined herself doing in downtown Chicago at 7:50 a.m. She raised her voice and spoke to strangers. "Hey, sorry," she called out, startling a couple of people who slowed down and turned. "I know everyone's busy, and I'm probably about to look like a crazy person, but can I have your attention for just 30 seconds? A few people pretended not to hear her. A few kept walking, but some slowed, curiosity winning over impatience. A group of college kids with backpacks lingered. A woman in a red coat stopped. A guy in a suit checked his watch and stayed anyway. Emma pointed to Daniel. "This is Daniel," she said. "His 6-year-old daughter is in St. Mary's with pneumonia. He got laid off and doesn't have insurance. I just saw the hospital papers and prescription myself. He's not making this up. I just sent some money to help with her meds, but obviously one person can't do it all." She held up her phone. "If any of you can spare $5, 10, even $1, I'm not asking you to fix everything. I'm just asking you not to walk past like he's invisible if this was your kid. You'd want someone to stop too."